Namaste.
I love how he fixed his hair.
Yeah, I can see myself now. Good morning.
Hi,
Welcome,
everybody.
everyone, to Q&A.
Good to see you.
Yes.
Amit, you're in San Francisco,
Yes.
correct?
Right. All right. So, welcome to Q&A, questions and answers. So here we have a list, a fairly extensive list today, actually, where we're going to explore different aspects of the spiritual path and questions that come up for people in the process that they're in. Since we're in the midst of the yoga of manifestation, this is also an opportunity to come to a greater recognition of what is arising in your life. Those of you who are linked with me are traveling this journey, if you know it or not. And there are many things that may start showing up that would be unexpected or unrecognized or not available to your understanding in terms of how to collaborate. Yeah, even though questions are more important than answers, I see that my answers are contextual, that they give you a way of holding what it is that's happening rather than a specific satisfaction of the questioner. So the questioner may not be satisfied, but something else will happen that will create a context in which you hold it. The nature of what it is that I bring for you is to empower that quality of you that is the context for the content that's rising, the presence that holds. So that as we go into these inquiries, in these explorations, let it enrich your intellect, because the Gita does say the intellect, this is the path of the intellect, the highest intelligence of our human ego, is the most likely collaborator, especially in these modern times. If your heart is there, and your body is there, well, then you don't need to have answers. You are always able to be in the question without answers. But in the mind, it's always looking for answers. It's always trying to understand where things are. Unfortunately, the mind is the problem. So when you feed the mind, it keeps being a problem. So how do we come to a place different than that? That's really, you might say, the whole purpose of my work is so you can find that other place that can be in the uncertainty, that can be in the vulnerability, and that can be in the not knowing, and hold it rather than necessarily understand it. Although definitely in my experience, when you can hold it, it starts revealing its true nature, which comes from a different place than understanding. All right, well, with that said, we're going to step into this arena.
Okay, and I think we have almost all of those of you who submitted a question online. I'm looking for Patricia. Is she online? Okay, I don't see her, but I'm going to read the question.
Yeah, she couldn't be here for the Q&A.
Okay. Dear Sat Shree, I had a vision today. My separate observer surrendered and merged with God. My heart contained creation. My body was the sanctuary. Then I saw myself being lovingly helped out of Maya. When I came back to human consciousness, I looked at the Elysian mysteries and the initiations, very old, into life and death, and how after these initiations, the beings were permanently changed. I felt desperate. My life's purpose was dashed because I was not part of the chapter 19. Then I was in a black granite coffin. The lid was closed on me. There was just darkness, no movement, pre-creation. There wasn't even terror. Please help. And tonight I am going to a children's concert and won't be able to be at the Q&A. Lovingly, Patricia. Okay.
All right, so experiences of this sort happen to many of us in different ways. Sometimes they're quite as dramatic and full of rich content like Patricia's, but they come from the same place. So I should speak a little bit about this. If Patricia was here, I would ask her, what was your experience in your body after you came out or while you were in it? You usually aren't in a body when you have this kind of experience, but when you came out, if there's peace and calmness and fulfillment in some form, bliss or love, then it was a true direct experience. If it was a knowing, if it was a seeing, with some, of course, experiential components, primarily then it indicates it's an awareness experience. Now, the boundary between the psychic being and the awareness has a lot to do with the quality of how we've developed our mind. The psychic being knows without knowing how it knows. The mind figures out how it knows and is always trying to solve problems. So the visions that have come were all allegorical. So it seems they are tapping into the rich trove that Patricia has, because she spent much of her life in the higher intellect in inquiry into the nature of spirit and God and truth. And therefore it's coming in and coding the way she is experiencing or what she's seeing, which is fine. And that can be an enriching of our psychic being, which is a part of us that is the essential quality of our existence that comes out of the Sat, that surrounds the core of our identity. Out of the psychic being, then we add our layers of ego and egoing and the rest of it. Psychic being ends up to be the natural collaborator with the soul. So it is often the one that will give us the first glimpses. They will give us the dreams. They will give us the subtle plane experiences to some extent. But the nature is, it's as if you're looking through a window. It is not the direct experience, but rather the experience being seen through the veil of the habit of the human mind and the nature of the psychic being coded by an identity, by a person. So there's a membrane, transparent, some more transparent than others, and therefore there's sort of a radiance of it. In the 11th chapter of Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna, please show me yourself. I want to see you. That wanting to see is the quest of the psychic being. And Krishna said to him, see all these wonderful characteristics of that are associated with my identity, but you cannot see me with those eyes. Let me give you the celestial vision. So it's pointing to this thing I'm speaking of, that many experiences can be seen and there's a radiance of seeing it. And then there are those when the veil is ripped and you are in the experience. The qualitative difference is night and day. You would have no inclination to research it. You're not likely, when you recover, if the veil is ripped, have any accessible memory of what happened. It all depends upon the development of the relationship of your psychic being with your essential spiritual quality, which is closer to the soul than the being. I know that almost all of you have interpreted your spiritual experience through the psychic being. It is natural, and it is the means by which the ego learns what's happening to it. With the psychic being, then the intelligence, we become the collaborator with the process. But the true core spiritual self is the supreme. Sri Aurobindo used the word the central self. It is the identity that's organized as an expression of the purpose of the supreme. When we have those introductions to the supreme, the veil of the psychic is penetrated in the experience, much as it was for Arjuna. And it was a glorious and ecstatic experience, but it was deeply disturbing and frightening simultaneously. So what I would say for Patricia is it's pointing to something that's already happening. However, it's become an allegorical statement. The granite and the blackness, of course, would be the Sat or the Asat. And the experiences that you had as, the glorious experience you had are probably a reflection of the truth of what's here for you, but has not yet manifested. It's in the process of manifesting. And when you reference the old teachings about when someone sees in that way, well, it is a form of initiation if you've not been exposed to it before, or if you don't have any access to transmission. This would be a form of initiation because it would give your psychic being and the intelligence that could understand the experience a context for becoming that. It would become tangibly more real to you. that is something you carry. Now, I have met many spiritual teachers who it's entirely still operating within the domain of the psychic being. And the characteristic of these teachers is the radiance, but not the transmission. So how do you know? Well, in each case, you have to become the supreme to see it for yourself. But when you cross that threshold between the psychic being and the supreme being, there's no doubt. So interimly, it's a good sign, positive indicator. Goes to show that the psychic being is traveling with Patricia in her journey and giving her information about what's happening. The nature of the psychic being for some of us lives in such an ascended state that they can actually be in the state of their higher self in the, relatively speaking, future compared to the embodiment. It could be 2025, even though she's in 2021. So it has yet to come. And that's the key to understand. These things become real when we can embody them. So the key here is not to get too caught up in these events when they happen. They're wonderful. They're worthy of recording if you have the means of recording. But they're not going to carry anything other than an enriching of your faith and your aspiration and your longing, which is wonderful in itself, but not substantive in terms of being that. That has yet to come fully. All right, there you go.
Okay. So the next question is from Gordon. Good to see you, Gordon.
Hey.
All right, dear Sat Shree and Satyamai, since setting out on the spiritual path more seriously, I found I have become considerably less at cause than I was previously. The reason being that a seemingly relentless load of adversity, still ongoing, has come up in my life. When I take a rest from action, things seem to go better. But as soon as I start to make what seems necessary actions, they are met with constant opposition and frustration. The process of enduring calmly has, over time, come to feel like a kind of learned helplessness. What is the best way to reconcile enduring calmly with being at cause? A good question.
It's a very good. It's that point of transition. It's a point of transition. We endure calmly, not just to endure calmly, because then it would be exactly what you said. It would be kind of almost a perpetual form of dejection. But to be with what's arising in you that is not yet being met, that's requiring you to endure calmly. The advantage of life is it tests our realization. And when you're in the 19th chapter, you want to be tested. You want, because it's only through testing that we grow stronger in our realization. So the 19th chapter is always about the battlefield. It's always about entering into our life. And when we do, as an expression of the Supreme, life will test you. Guaranteed. Sorry. It is a process by which the testing becomes the means that that which still resists, that still is afraid, that still opposes or is repulsed, surrenders. It's a learning to align with a different principle that does not need to endure calmly. Rather, it holds, and what it holds reveals its nature inside your body, and it thereby enriches and transmutes into what you are as the context for what is arising. But you do need to take time out, especially, when you're in an onslaught, like it sounds like you are now. So welcome to my life. And how do you do that? Well, you make sure that no matter what, you do your 45 minutes silent sitting twice a day. Twice a day, not once a day, doesn't count. Twice a day, because that will give you enough reference. It may not bring you the peace and the silence and the stillness and the connection that you would normally get in times of turbulence, but that's the nature of this arena. Rather, though, it will strengthen your ability to come out of this kind of being overtaken structure in yourself so that you can take the time out, even if you're not going to go into the state of the silence and the stillness and the inwardness. It will start digesting the current content and diffusing its unwitting importance you give into it. Remember, it's issues of time and space. So it's a matter of where you place yourself in relationship with what arises. That placing is both within your ego or within your being or within your inner unstill and changing presence. And, and the time is what you're doing with the sequence of change that's currently arising in your life. Are you making something important in the future that really isn't important now? And who is assigning importance? And the thing that is the imperative that says, if I don't do this, then bad things will happen. What is that projecting, and where does that come from? So every time you sit in 45 minutes twice a day is your chance to dive into the content that's currently being activated. Because you'll see that as you grow stronger, when you recognize that you have a choice about where you stand and what you make important in the current change of your circumstances, and that you can choose different. You can choose to let go. You can choose to get off the position that you're unwittingly carrying. Or you can choose to become aware of the structure in you that's still veiling your ability to be more fluidly with what's arising. Now, it's usually a struggle between desire and what's arising. You want something done or finished or over with. That creates a rajas expression, of course, and that, of course, is a condition of suffering. How do you deal with rajas? You meet the condition of suffering without acting on it. You feel the impatience. You feel that, oh my God, I got to do this, and you sit with it as an event in the energetic body. And watch. That's how you gain the strength, the power to convert your life into your sadhana. So there you go. You're right on board. If you're doing chapter 19 or not, you're there, boy.
Thanks, Gordon. All right, so Lena is our next question. And I did see her up here earlier. Okay. Dear Sat Shree and Satyamayi, I started to make jewelry for fun a few years ago and made so much that I eventually, with the help of a friend, created a web shop, which does not work since it is not professionally done and nobody knows about it. So I have had no sales in the shop, only to friends. I realize that I have a tremendous fear and resistance to exposing myself and my jewelry, and have the naive hope that a web shop would take care of this. Also, I have enormous stress about the upkeep of a web shop since IT scares me, and I have absolutely no brain for this. The whole thing about showing who I am and my gifts is a major, difficult issue for me. And now where I feel I want to have a professional web shop created or sell my jewelry in other ways, I feel that the issue about selling my jewelry is a much deeper issue, and that I may not have much success doing it unless I uncover and heal the underlying fear of showing who I am and exposure of my gifts. I would appreciate your comments on this issue. Thank you. Love, Lena. And Lena, I tried to get on and I couldn't get on. So that is an issue for sure.
All right, so this
It's a beautiful question.
it's a good question, because you're obviously you've answered it. That is the answer. That there's something in you about coming forward that's being tested, and that is, of course, your piece of the arena. It is, and what your ego wants to do is get someone to do it for you, thinking that would do it. Yet you suspect that part of you, which is good. So the principle here is really these outer things are secondary, because being able to create something like you're creating, of course, is some degree of necessity, proportional, or it's a wish, a desire. And the nature of the authenticity of that desire is, what is it compensating for? So many people seek to be successful in the world as a compensation for their not feeling they're worthy or they're good enough. And there's lots of successful companies that are run by people who are still run by their endless need and restless to prove themselves and to justify their existence through their success and their recognition and their wealth. You don't need that. You need something much simpler. But you're right, there is a direct correlation between our inner resolve and our outer effectiveness. But it's not going to be the website that you create for yourself, it's something else. What it is that you have to bring takes time to create. And since what you're discussing is something we're addressing this coming week on chapter 19, which is has to do with duality and causality. The nature of creating anything is you step into the arena of that which opposes, as well as that which could create it. And those meeting the paradox of those two contradictory dualities brings you into a relationship with how things come out of that. So if you take a lot of effort, rajas, and little result, then the rajas obviously is not based in a greater truth. It's based on its endless striving for something other than what this is. So you have to then find a way of authentically bringing yourself forward. Now, perhaps your question is one way to do that. Perhaps in that you will find a way to hold the fact that right now it doesn't seem you're as successful as you expected. But there's something in you is saying this isn't enough. You have to have more. Now, it's okay. Rajas has a role to play in the creation. It's just you have to be in responsibility for when the effects of your choices start coming back to you. And part of that has to do with often the issue of scarcity. Simultaneous with this ain't it is it's not enough. And scarcity is an attitude that no matter what you have, is not enough. So learning to go from not enough to enough, this is enough, and then take action, detached from the outcome, as the Gita points to, you are more likely to get something truer than otherwise. The coming out of the attitude of rajas, of scarcity and not enough, into the attitude of sattva, it is enough. And I take the action as a spontaneous expression of my natural nature, of my innate being, the dharma, of my own capacities and gifts that I was brought with this life. So really, you could have asked this question of a financial advisor or a media person and, could have gone a different way, but you don't have to pay for this. The thing that you do is listen to it, let it sink in. Find out where you're standing right now around this and meet that in your body and dive into that territory. And then no matter what the outcome, you will be enriched. You will find the strength to continue to bring yourself forward, just like you did in this question. So there you have it. I suspect success is coming to you. You just have to know how to hold time. What's in this now may not be that future now, but this now is everything, and you have what you have now. I saw the picture. It's a beautiful picture, so I don't know where that is, but I would have bought it.
The photography was stunning in the picture you sent. So I was frustrated I couldn't get on the website, but I'll try again in another location. So,
and
thanks,
of course,
Lena.
Anything now that the question's been revealed, who knows what'll happen.
All right. Okay. Sophie, you're next. Okay. Hi.
Namaste.
All right. Dear Sat Shree and Satyamai, I recently met a man that I would like to love because of who he is and for love's sake. Simultaneously, This brings up a powerful and primitive existential experience of fear. When I feel love towards a man, my experiences tell me that my feeling of love will become self-destructive. Love feels like a warning sign. If I feel it, then I'm setting myself up for destruction, says my mind. Therefore, I have a hard time allowing myself to feel love because it's connected to memories of abuse in previous relationships. My only dream in this lifetime is to love another human and to experience what it is like to be in a healthy relationship. How do I deal with wanting to love, but feeling the fear of being broken again because of love? With much love, Sophie. Thanks, Sophie.
Thank you, Sophie. You would like to love. To like to love someone, of course, is not loving. But it is it is a desire or a wish. And it probably reflects an incomplete part of your experiential life that has to, in some way, be resolved. And that place can be resolved by throwing yourself into a relationship which you feel love for, but they or may not have the same kind of reciprocal love. And when we're talking about you being a young person, of course, then you still have the imperatives that come from the sexual urge and the reproduction urge and being in a woman's body and all that. So it's quite complicated. So when we talk about manifestation, I say discrimination is the key. I could see, Sophie, that you will find a relationship. I see that as you've come out of this contraction and adaptation of your life, it's opening up your chakras, it's opening up your ability to be in existence, and now a possibility of a true relationship is expanding in you. Unfortunately, at this stage of the journey, the testing of that is a matter of where your attention goes. So if you find someone where love is possible, and part of that, well, because you're at a place where love now is possible, you actually are experiencing love without actually being in an intimate relationship with a male person. But if it's where love is possible, then the need to have validation and connection from outside of ourselves also comes to the surface. And therefore, the need can never be fulfilled. Need is a desire, an unfulfilled desire. It is perhaps the greatest obstacle for people in the spiritual path is unexperienced, unmet desires, incomplete or unfulfilled desires. Because often the rest of our life is the compensating structure for that collection of those unfulfilled desires being held by your mother or your father during a moment of trauma. It is all that is locked into the structure of need. So when we bring to a relationship neediness, then you are right. The relationship is doomed. Even if the person was ready to give you, the best you could get out of it would be that they would be an enabler of your need. So true love of two psychic beings is the recognition on both parts of the being in each other that can hold them in the recognition of the structures that each may carry from the imperative of the sexual drive or from the needy structures of each of them. The male and the female principle are part of duality. And of course, that's then causality, and that's the turmoil that we all go. So for each of us personally, this is a very difficult arena to travel through until you've been strengthened. If it's a battlefield, it's the battlefield where there's a swamp. It's the portion where it's very hard with the collective subconscious structures associated with relationship to traverse this territory and succeed in recognizing that actually what it is a battlefield between truth and untruth, between love and hate, between need and fulfillment. So I don't always, as a general rule, recommend someone to let the expanding capacity that happens on this journey that would allow for a relationship to open up for you, to take those actions. Rather, I would invite people to wait till it comes to them and then to hold their own authority while in that experience without ever having to speak it or acknowledge it. And then watch. Because if it's infatuation, it will come fierce and then fade if you don't act on it. Otherwise, it comes fierce and you'll get entangled and then you'll fall. So going beyond the compulsion of infatuation is going to be your real challenge, and how to find the right relationship with it. Now, I can tell you, Sophie, whatever happens to you, you'll come up again, or it'll be a true collaborative partnership. I would wish that for you. I know it's coming, but it seems a little early on your journey. So I would be honest with the person about where you are, not so much into the deepening of it, but into the bringing it on the table, where you can see for yourself, experience for yourself, if there is true partnership there, or is it an agenda where when you show your vulnerability, they want to take advantage of it. So how do you discern? You can't discern by your passion or your longing or your need. You have to discern by that stable intent where you establish a context, where you choose to use this as a way of entering more fully into existence without the need outside of yourself for it to be reciprocated or validated. So you speak frankly and truly. You're about what your experience is. You put it on the table and you invite them to participate with you from that same place, and you restrain any throwing yourself into intimacy and sexuality in the relationship. Let the waters do. Ride out the wave of the infatuation, because then you'll neutralize the following consequences, which are likely to be disappointment and a repetition of structure that keeps you in neediness. All right, I hope that gives you some animation, some way of holding it. Travel, enter these territories with discretion.
She's right there.
Yeah, I see her here too.
Okay,
I'm looking at her.
Okay, both
We got
sides.
two of you. All right, Sophie.
Thanks, Sophie.
Yeah.
Okay, Caroline. Good to see you. All right. Dear Sat Shree and Satyamai, I have a question regarding integration. In my experience, everything moves so fast and there are new layers revealed all the time, like dominoes continuously falling, that it is deepening or getting harder and harder for me to see, to distance myself from it. There is this saying that we need time to integrate. Is this true? And if so, how can I know something is integrating or not? Do I need to keep track on this, or what is the right relationship to this process? With love and gratitude, Caroline.
All right. Thank you, Caroline.
Good.
Well, Caroline, you probably already know this, but your mind's a lot quicker than your emotional and physical system. It is full of questioning, and it's like it doesn't have enough to do, and it's still coming up with things to worry about and anticipate and to plan for and to make. So I got to tell you, try to unplug that. Just unplug it, put it aside, use it when you need it, but don't let it take over everything. The idea of integration, we really are usually the last ones to know if we're integrating it. So the nature of it is really to keep in the midst of the process. Now, in time and space, you have things that are going to be, like I say, time is change. And if you're in change and there is a sensation of changing where the mind can't understand it, where the mind can't gain control of it, where the mind can't hold the context and say, oh, is this good? Doesn't feel good. It is this whole place that will keep you from making the progress you're capable of. Because in fact, for you, Caroline, it's a little switch. It's a little switch that when it shifts, all of this will disappear as an issue. there's something you're holding on to. And that's that, I think that fierce intelligence is trying to control the process or trying to figure it out or trying to know it. And that's getting in the way of the fact that it's unfolding just as it should. So you have a warriorous quality in you, but it's a little bit tamasic, lazy. It's habituated to comfort. You spent a lot of years in sattva tamas, where everything's easy and your mind could do whatever it wanted to do. It could be effective in a lot of different areas. And you had this basic bliss base. Well, where you're going is going to take you beyond that. But the body is tamasic in that sattva, and therefore it's uncomfortable. And then the mind comes in to defend and explain and justify why it's not right to be uncomfortable. It's has a lot of authority you've given to that part of yourself. But if you look into your being, well, this whole issue of the amount of time and the amount of space and where you are and where you should be versus where you are and the boundaries between those two and your tendency to merge with others, as well as the tendency to more determinedly set up boundaries and no's, simultaneously existing in the duality of your organization. You got the whole thing in you, girl. This is the whole thing. So the whole thing is the battlefield of the impossibility of making anything happen in the outer world in exactly the way your ego wants it. Duh. So you have areas where you have trust, Gabriel, our work, and these are deeply nurturing and empowering supports for you to go beyond yourself. But in that tamas is a stubborn refusal to change. If you look at the three types of persistence, the persistence, sattvic persistence, rajas persistence, tamasic persistence. So you'll see you have a battle going on between the rajas and the tamas, the stubborn refusal and the wanting. So why does this get revealed in the 18th chapter? Is because that's where you are. And that for you to recognize that is the context rather than the understanding, which is the booby prize. Let the understanding be after. You climb the mountain and you're going up through the hills that take you up to the final peak. And whenever you come to one of the preliminary peaks, you say, this is really good when you look back at all the other peaks you've crossed, until you look to the next peak and you say, oh my God, I'm not done yet. So it's like that for you. You can't know that until you're there, and then the switch will click, and this will all disappear. That's part that can persist, that continues, sattvic persistence. That's the part you can trust. And you do that. You don't need to trust anybody else for that. That's where your true power lies. All right, my dear.
Okay, so that's all the written questions. So
Okay.
we can open up to those of you who have some questions you'd like to bring to Sat Shree right now.
Okay. Just put up that little hand.
It's good to see Hugh and Ella. You guys, I know it's really early in the morning.
All right. Looks like we have Sigrid.
Sigrid, okay.
Hello.
Okay.
Namaste.
Namaste, Sigrid.
Namaste. Well, I have this question that's been, I've had it in me for a few months or maybe a long time, but it's been growing in me, and I have decided to have a break from work, and I only have 12 days left to work before that break will happen, and I will be free sort of for 7 months. But for me, it's a huge struggle to cope with being at work during the days at the moment, and it's just growing harder and harder. You don't hear me?
There's an echo in the speaker, and there's a speaker
Okay.
they can turn on so I can hear you better.
Okay.
Working.
Should I
Okay,
continue?
there we go.
There,
They
it's
fixed it.
perfect.
Yeah.
Now it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, it's so hard to be at work, and I take breaks. I try to sit with myself and do nothing and all these things, but I get so exhausted. And I've had 3 weeks in a row where I've been sick during the Tuesday because it's been so hard going back to work from after the weekend. So I get headaches, I get stomach ache, I need to puke, there's just like my body can't cope with it, I can't cope with it, and it's such a struggle just to be with it. And since it's just 12 days left, it feels a bit maybe unnecessary to bring this up, but still it feels also like this pattern that I've been having. And when I get home and I sit with this exhaustion and extreme tiredness, I also have all these stories from earlier in life that comes back, and I don't trust them anymore, so I don't get too involved in them. But I just I just want to bring this up and see what you have to say.
I love where you are. Keep going. You should ask them to extend your contract. Bottom line is that this is definitely chapter 19 stuff. This is, you are in the midst of the battlefield. In the battlefield, of course, you're going to be exhausted, right? At least the secret is the exhaustion is the doorway. It is the place to find, like you're finding it, you're not even having to do it. All the old stories show up. And all the old stuff is now showing up. Why? Because you're in a process of conquest, right? All battles are about conquest. In your case, it's conquesting the smallness, the diminishment, the habit of too much, the habit of not wanting to, the preferences. They're all coming in, and the body is having a hard time in incorporating the process, but you're actually moving those structures. You're actually experiencing them. And every time you rest, you are digesting a portion. It is happening quickly, but relatively speaking. So the integration isn't like a moment of feeling better. The integration is there right now in the process. In your case, you have 12 days. All right. So it might get more intense because of the part of you that wants it over. It's got an investment in having it this way versus that way. It's the rajas, that says, I want something other than this. So how do you train that? You restrain the rajas and you show up tired and you do what you can, because that's what happens. One more, you killed one person, then there's another one coming at you from behind you, and another one coming from the left, and another one from the right. How do you do that? Well, you do it the way you're doing it. You do it as best you can. You take as much time out as you can. It does help. You're young. You're not going to die from this process. You can, therefore, you may have some symptoms, but they're not going to defeat your aspiration. Now, it could be also the nature of the work, and you're picking up energies unwittingly, because you probably have moments of your natural enthusiasm. When you're naturally enthusiastic, you go outward and you take in energy. That's what happens. So restraining the enthusiasm, because I know that's what happens. The vital gets exhausted, and the vital is what motivates us for most actions. So if you hold your vital energies, if you don't give them away, if you restrain the tendency to talk, if you restrain the tendency to get engaged, keep yourself inward, then the outwardness will not exhaust you as much. Okay, you got that? And in there, that you have a very strong inwardness. You just, the natural positive enthusiasm is a wonderful part of your nature, but it also will add more exhaustion than need be. Right? So if you look at how the day goes, right, there's times of the day where you're good about it, you can do it, and you're interested, and then collapse. That's the vital. That's the vital nature. It's unstable. It feeds off of the attention of others. It feeds off of the activity of doing itself or doing, especially in a positive nature. So there's sort of a delight that comes from the vital, to just be engaged, to be doing something than nothing, you know. So taming that and to use it to discourage it, you know, when you reach an arena where more is demanded of you than you're used to, one of the things is how to conserve your own energy. And it's not through the doing of the job, it's through what you put into it. So you're putting too much importance into the outward action. I always think it's best to get a job where it's just absolutely simple, where, you know, you just do simple things, because then the tendency to get hooked in is less. And then the universe will bring you enough challenges with a simple job. You don't need to have a bigger job. But if you have a complicated job and you have one that involves your intellect and your relationship with people, then this is the way you learn to move steadily, unchangingly through the content of each day. Staying in the now with you, breathing periodically in the course of the day, taking time out with yourself and breathe in and get in touch with the now here in you. Use that your refuge. And then it doesn't take longer than, you know, a minute. And then you can go back in with a little more authority. Okay? That's how you do it. Thank you.
Okay, Anna is next.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. So yeah, since raising my hand, I could think of a million reasons for not raising my hand.
Good for you.
So I think part of raising my hand was since joining the course a week ago, just to step forward and be seen, I guess.
Good. You're right there. Be there in your body right now. You have a lot going on in your system.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are in the skinny branches. I like it very much. Thank you for this offering. It's beautiful.
I guess it was trying to some advice on. I have a very physical process, which has been for about a year now, but I thought I was working through it, and then since the course, it's really ramped up, kind of through the left side of my face into my neck. And when I sit in silent sittings, it's like it's just overwhelming in what it's bringing up, and I don't know how to hold it really, because it just is so all-consuming when it comes.
Tell me something of the nature of that experience on the left side.
It's in my ear, so it can be in my jaw, into my head, like this pressure, and then in my left side, it's like a pulling down here and into my neck, and it just feels like it's just like the feelings that come up is that I can't be with this. It's like just really touching my core fear of how I see myself, maybe, how it's affecting.
It's more fundamental than that. It's like your survival. It's like death.
Yeah, it's like, how do I be in the world with it? How do I do this?
Existential terror.
Yeah.
Existential terror is actually, if there is a fear, the underlying cause of all fear is the existential terror of having a body and it possibly dying or being diminished, and the possibility of life threatened. But the terror of this is like reptilian, hardwired in the deep subconscious structure. So as I'm sitting with you, I'm experiencing the lower back of the spine near the first chakra. It's like right down in a fundamental structure, and I'm not sure if you brought this with you this life or an event happened pre-mental in your time in your life where this was an event where you had physical endangerment, where the possibility of you not existing somehow something to do with this part of yourself. But I also experience the psychic component of that. And so therefore it's not clear. But I can tell you what it addresses. I believe it addresses your ability to come into existence. It has a tendency to distort, so you can't come into life. It's not just I don't want to, I can't come into life. And it's because you could be eaten. I mean, it's reptilian. It's like you could be destroyed. So I'm pointing to this just to exaggerate where that might be coming from and to have you feel into your body with this as best you can. Because whatever it is a wounding. But all woundings are showings that release primal structures in our design. So how to deal with it? First, I suspect, because of where you are on the journey, your system is trying to open up energetic body. Are you learning the elemental techniques, Anna, yet? It'll probably help accelerate this process. So I suspect this primal structure is coming up from the first chakra as I'm experiencing it, because it's trying to awaken, it's trying to come up, but it has to first go through this structure you're holding right now. Now, is this diminishing your ability to come into the world now in your circumstances in your life?
At the moment, I'm taking time out from work, so I don't have that extra.
Okay, well, then it's probably going to come up and show itself as it is, and that there's nothing you need to understand or worry about. It is this is where you are in the journey. I would recommend learning the elemental techniques as a start point. That'll strengthen your ability to activate and align with a Kundalini Shakti. When the Kundalini way comes up, it usually, for many people, it starts with terror and then converts into the extraordinary expression. So it is the Kundalini Shakti can be pretty ruthless, seemingly, at first, creating pretty strong symptoms. So I suspect it's in that category. You have good self-awareness. You have enough spiritual maturity to recognize this is the process. It is this incapacity to come into life more fully that this is now going to allow. It'll empower your embodiment and your ability to bring what you have into your life more fully. So trust the process, and you're just where you need to be. Very good.
Okay, next up, Polly.
Polly,
John.
Polly, look at that.
Hey,
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
I can.
I
How
think
about
so.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a microphone. I've experiencing terror since raising my hand, and experiencing god awful anxiety since leaving Washoe. It's better when I'm in nature, but when I come to the city, I'm just like this.
So are you experiencing this in your heart? Where is it located, the terror?
When I was waiting for you. It's in my lower, my belly. My belly, I felt like I was gonna vomit. Um, it. I've been asking, where is this? It feels like it's just in my nervous system, all over.
All right. I can feel where it is. So let's attend to this place. It is the same existential stress that I was talking about to Anna. So it's the terror of being in a body that could die. So it's that reptilian stress. You've carried it most of your life, so it's not unusual. So I'm experiencing it. I can feel definitely the throat, the vomiting is always in the throat, but it's linked all the way down. All right, so there's a gagging, but I don't want to go there yet. I want to go into where I'm feeling it, which is the diaphragm. It's that place just below your ribs, just before your heart. And there's two, well, when I point to that one, immediately the anguish of the heart shows up for me. Yeah, it's like immediately it's anguish. And that actually opens the fifth a little. So, I think you just need to be there, right there. Put your hand in that area. It's about your breath, not you could put it one on your throat and one in the diaphragm, right where the ribs, the two ribs meet together. Okay. And then push and clench. And then the throat, poke to the soft spot in the throat, in the middle. Not there, in the middle. Look at me. Here, there. Down, 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 down the neck. There we go. Yeah, I'm teaching you. Okay, now just be there between those 2 points. Okay, you can take your hands off. What's there?
Oh, just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. Which
All
is
right,
how I've
that's
been
it.
walking around. I
Yeah,
can't do this.
So where is she? Where is that voice coming from? Is that the back of your head, opposite the throat? I can't do this. I can't do this.
Here, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. I can feel it.
Yeah.
Right there, it's a small, right where the two nadis come together in the base of the skull. Yeah, that's where the voice is coming from. The sensation is in the front of you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Polly, that's all you have to do.
Okay.
You just keep meeting this. It's in your heart. I find that the resting place is in your heart. And it's about, I can't do this, but also there's no place for me. So it's obviously part of your trauma. You were born aware, very aware, and you recognize quite early the peril of your being in a body and being a child and having no power. And it's a residue that just will have to be worked with in the body. The body is the part that will process it. By the way, vomiting is actually a way of moving the issue. So if the inclination to vomit comes up energetically, exaggerate it. Even go to the edge of a toilet so that you can move it energetically, because it might actually create a vomit. Yeah. So it's trying to move, it's trying to organize. It's not quite organized. You're still very scattered in that terror. So that part of you, little girl, no place to be, no way to handle it, nobody to hold her. So you can hold her too. You can step when you're in your better self, when you're not letting her overtake you. You can go to her and hold her. So it's a habit of making you repeat the story of the traumatized little girl and becoming her. And you have to break that habit. And you do that by being in your body. Recognize she's there, but she needs you rather than you to become her. You need to bring your future self, your current self, to her not let her overtake your current self. Let that be your intent. And then being there in the city is your battlefield. It's
Yeah.
right where you need to be.
Yeah. I'm really glad I came forward because I haven't been able to get organized enough. It's happened both times after GTP. When I'm in the city, I'm too egg on the sidewalk to even hold it, even though intellectually I knew that was, I just, so thank you. That's all I
Yeah.
need to say is thank you.
Yeah. No, there are certain environments that make this easier for you, and you need to accommodate that until you're strong enough. And then you can be in any environment. It won't make any difference. Yeah. All right.
Thank
Good
you.
point.
Thank
Namaste.
you. Namaste.
Namaste. You know, you could say this whole journey is about getting organized and aligning our system and learning how to actually be in our bodies. So yeah, it's every one of us are in different places of that struggle. All right. Do we have anyone else? All right. Well, it's already time. So it's perfect as usual, even though we had a lot of chaos here. But we all made it onto this field to be with each other. So thank you all for joining us for this. It's always a delight to be with you in this way. All right, so let's sit together. We'll just do 5 minutes. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat Shree. All glory to Supreme. May truth and love manifest.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you. And Amit, can you stay on so we can chat for a few minutes? Got it. Perfect. All right. It's great to see everybody, and we will see you again soon.